Can you honestly tell us that you ever saw a gun inside that vehicle?
I saw a barrel come up on the window.
I'll be the first to tell you there's no weapons in the car.
Well, maybe I'm not as fast with the whole thing as I think I am, but it was...
Or maybe he wasn't getting out of the truck.
No, absolutely he was.
Many have compared the Dunn case to the Zimmerman case. The same prosecutors are involved. People have said George Zimmerman had too much of a chance to tell his side of the story, using that walk and talk reenactment of the shooting of Trayvon Martin as a way to testify without taking the stand. Remember this?
Like, I felt like his arm going down to my side, and I grabbed it, and I just grabbed my firearm, and I shot him one time.
Some have suggested that's why the prosecution in the Dunn case decided not to play the police interrogation of Michael Dunn. But Mark O'Mara, George Zimmerman's former attorney, CNN legal analyst, was it a mistake not to play this interrogation video in the prosecution case because A, cops really nailed him on his inconsistencies, and B, do you really think that's going to force Michael Dunn to take the stand?
I mean, I have to agree with what Sonny said earlier. I think it was a tactical decision they made in the Zimmerman case that they probably regret, and they weren't going to make that same mistake again. You know, it's a chess game. You have to play it knowing what your moves are going to be 3 or 4 moves out. And with the strength of the state's evidence, they didn't do a phenomenal job, but they did a very sufficient job. Then they put the burden back on the defense to come up with some reasonable hypothesis of the self-defense, and that can only come at this point from Dunn's mouth. And when it does, then they bring out the tapes, the letters, maybe some other witnesses who talk about non-peaceful attitude of Dunn, a door that I do not think should have been opened in this case by the defense, by the way.
So if Dunn doesn't take the stand, and the defense has said they only have a couple of witnesses left, and that's tomorrow, will the prosecution then be able to play this tape in rebuttal and bring out all that stuff, or are they kind of tied then?
You know, maybe. But the problem with it is that we are really going with a premise that simply cannot happen. Stroller, the way he handled the case so far, and almost acknowledged it in jury instructions, yeah. He said, I'm sorry, yeah, Corey Stroller. No matter what, he has basically said that Dunn is going to take the stand, and he absolutely has to. Failing to take the stand at this point just basically hands the state their case. So if we were to start with the premise that if for some reason he doesn't testify, then yes, there may be a question of whether or not the tapes can come in, but unfortunately, I think the defense opened the door for some of that because when they brought in these peacefulness witnesses, they opened a door that never should have been opened, and I think the state's going to be able to walk through it with a lot of other evidence.
And of course, you're talking about some of the horrible letters that Dunn wrote from jail that have racist overtones. Now, I've been taking the prosecution's inventory. Let's take the defense inventory. The defense, in a very controversial move, brought the dead teenager, the victim's father, to the witness stand, the ultimate hostile witness. The defense wants jurors to believe that Jordan Davis's dad coached the 3 other teenagers who were in the van with him, the SUV with him, to coordinate their stories about what happened that night. But my question to Mark O'Mara, after we listen to this, did this tactic backfire? Was it callous and even cruel? Listen.
Isn't it true that the 3 boys came over a couple days later and talked to you about the facts that night?
No, they came over to the house and they talked to me about that they were sorry, and those facts is what they talked about. They didn't talk about the facts surrounding his death. They talked about how sorry they were that my son was killed, was shot and killed, is what they said to me.
Mark O'Mara, was this dumb and cruel and callous on the defense's part?
Well, you have to start remembering that a jury is an organic entity and they're human beings and they have a lot of sympathy. And if you're going to put a dead teen's dad or mom or sister or cousin on the stand, it better be for a very particular surgical reason, and you better do it with a scalpel and you better do it well. And if he was going to do it, if what he was planning on getting was an inconsistency with the boys' statements, by making it up at the house, he missed completely. And now you're right, I think what happened was it showed to a jury who's never seen these cases before that there was a disrespect to the father of a young, dead teenager, and I think it backfired. I don't think it came across well, and it didn't hit the point that he was supposed to make with it.
Yes, well, thank you, Mark O'Mara. This man has been through such hell, the victim's father. I interviewed him, he's such a wonderful guy, and, you know, my heart goes out to him in this very difficult time. We're all over this tomorrow.